We'll be talking about the boundaries of axilla and its contents. So the anterior boundary of axilla is formed by muscles. So you can see one muscle over here. So this muscle arching over and attaching to the humerus. So this muscle is the pectoralis major. So the pectoralis major forms the anterior boundary of the axilla, and a small portion is also contributed by this muscle over here. So this is the pectoralis minor muscle. So I'll remove the pectoralis major so that you can see the pectoralis minor muscle. So this here is the pectoralis minor muscle, also contributing to the anterior wall of the axilla. Now the medial wall of the axilla. So this over here is the medial wall of axilla, and you can clearly see that the medial wall of axilla is formed by these muscles over here. So these muscles are the serratus anterior muscles. So these are the serratus anterior muscles forming the medial wall of axilla. Now we will see the posterior wall of axilla. So the posterior wall of axilla, you can see the posterior wall of axilla is formed by this muscle over here. So this muscle over here is actually the subscapularis muscle. So the subscapularis muscle, you can see through this opening. This is the subscapularis muscle, and it is attached to the ventral aspect of the scapula bone in the scapular fossa. So this here is the subscapularis muscle, forming the posterior boundary, and the posterior boundary, you can see, is also formed by this muscle over here and this muscle. So this muscle over here is the teres major muscle, also contributing to the posterior boundary of the axilla, and this muscle over here, the latissimus dorsi. So reiterating, the posterior boundary is formed by this muscle, the latissimus dorsi, this muscle over here, which is the teres major muscle, and finally the subscapularis muscle. This is here is the subscapularis muscle, and also the tendon of latissimus dorsi. Now we will see the lateral wall. So the lateral wall of the axilla, you can see this bone over here is the humerus, and the lateral bone is contributed by the bicipital groove. So the humerus on its medial aspect has a bicipital groove through which the tendon of biceps passes. So the bicipital groove contributes to the lateral boundary. And so again, for a quick revision, the medial wall formed by the serratus anterior muscles, the lateral wall formed by the bicipital groove of the humerus, the anterior wall formed by the pec major muscle, which has been removed, and the pec minor muscle, and the posterior wall formed by the subscapularis, the tendon of latissimus dorsi. And on rotating the model backwards, we can also see the posterior wall being contributed by the uh, teres major muscle and the latissimus dorsi muscle. So this here is the teres major muscle, and this is the latissimus dorsi muscle. Now we will see the contents of axilla. So the posterior wall, the anterior wall, the medial wall, and the lateral wall. So all the contents that you are seeing over here are actually the contents of axilla. So we can see that this is the subclavian artery. The subclavian artery, as soon as it crosses the first rib, comes to be known as the axillary artery. So the axillary artery is the content. The axillary vein, which is lying anteriorly to the axillary artery, is also a content. These lymph nodes shown in green color are the axillary lymph nodes, and they are also the content. And finally we can see some nerves in yellow color. So these are actually our cords of brachial plexus. So we can see one cord which is lying medially to the axillary artery. This here is the axillary artery. So the cord which is lying medial to it is the medial cord of brachial plexus. The one which is lying laterally to the axillary artery is the lateral cord of brachial plexus, and one cord will be lying posterior to the axillary artery and hidden by the axillary artery. So that will be the posterior cord of brachial plexus. So axillary artery, axillary vein, lateral cord, posterior cord, medial cord of brachial plexus, the axillary lymph nodes, and along with that the axillary pad of fat, which is not shown in this model, is also a content of axilla.